Okay, so I'm really pleased this morning to introduce Craig Rost, but I think most of you probably already know him. In one of his previous capacities, he served as the city manager for development for the city of Champaign for many years. He was also, after that, the director of the Champaign County Economic Development Corporation. And he taught an economic development class at the U of I in urban and regional planning. He's very involved in the Public Art League and the Champaign Public Library. And the subject of today's presentation, the Clinton Lake Sailing Association, for which Craig is the current commander, which means I think that he can perform weddings and other judicial functions. I had asked Craig to speak in June, but the opportunity came to move up his presentation, which I thought was very timely because some of you may be looking for something legal to do. And the Clinton Lake Sailing Association is well known for its social activities, which are, of course, are curtailed at the moment. However, the marina is open and people can take boats out, including boats that belong to the Clinton Lake Sailing Association. So it's possible for a person who doesn't themselves own a boat to become a member, and with the proper credentials, I'll use for lack of a better word, but training, can actually just use the boats that are out there that belong to the Clinton Lake Sailing Association. So it's a great time to learn how to sail and get out on the water. So with that in mind, please join me in welcoming past president of Champaign Rotary, Craig Rost.
Hi. Thank you. I'm broadcasting from Clinton Lake Marina, as you can see, via virtual background. I couldn't make it out to the lake this early in the morning. Hats off to you for your Zooming this early in the morning, and thank you for having me. Oh, and Mary, I'm not commander, I'm commodore. They don't follow orders at all, and so the commander thing doesn't fit. But commodore does. That's the chair of the board, and it's a combination of the words commode and adore, depending on people's moods. So I'll welcome you all. Are you seeing me on the screen? Somebody give me a nod. Okay. I'm going to do some screen sharing here, and I hope it goes well. If not, Daryl has my PowerPoint. So let me share the screen with you. You should have this on your screen now. Sunrise Rotary. Okay, good. I'll go back and forth a couple of times because most of it's on a PowerPoint, but I've got a couple of images to show you. And as Mary said, I'm the much adored or much maligned commodore of the Clinton Lake Sailing Association. It's my second year doing that, and I really enjoy it. All kidding aside, the question I get most often is, where in the world do you sail around here? When I tell people that we go sailing, and it's kind of a humorous question I field constantly. And I say Clinton Lake, and I say next question is where in the world is that? So there's an interesting history here as far as where people go sailing. Let me share another image. Daryl, give me a thumbs up. You're getting the picture, right? Okay. This is the Clinton Lake Marina, and these are the slips. The image behind me is right here on some uncovered slips where some of us have sailboats, and then there are covered slips. There's a marina building and a large parking lot. This is full of fishermen's trailers and people during the weekends. A lot of the marina is shut down right now because of the COVID, but the boating is all available. So what I'm going to tell you today is you can come out to the lake, and I'll tell you a little bit about how to do that. The Marina Road, I'll plan out in a second and show you where it is, but this is the marina property, and this is the CLSA, Clinton Lake Sailing Association property right here where I'm using the cursor. These are our boats parked. This is our dock, our launching ramps. And up here is a little building we use for parties and picnics when we're not holed up by COVID. So there'll be some other images that show how that works. If I zoom out from the marina and pick up Clinton Lake, for those of you who are not familiar with Clinton Lake, it's 13 miles long, and a good part of it, this part from the cursor to about here, is navigable by large boats, and this portion is navigable by medium to small boats. And this is for those of us who kayak and fool around in canoes, can get way up in here where all the animals and interesting stuff is going on. And the water skiing all kind of goes on around here, as does sailing on boats like mine and our other members. So if I continue to zoom out, Clinton Lake is located almost due west of Champaign, but it's also equidistant from Bloomington, Decatur. It's really nicely positioned, and it's about a 30-minute drive from Champaign to get out to Clinton Lake. So let me go back to my screen share here, my presentation. All right. So moving right along, this is the building that that I showed you up in the upper left-hand corner of our property. This is our pavilion. It was built by the Hartmans years ago when Clinton Lake Sailing Association was first started. The Hartman brothers were avid sailors and became avid Flying Scot sailors, and they started this club, and they built with their bare hands this pavilion and all the improvements here that have stood ever since. In the late 70s, and so the club has a long history of volunteerism, and this is where we socialize when we can, when we're not stuck at home. What is the Clinton Lakes Sailing Association? It's the pursuit of sailing in all of its various forms, sailing of all kinds. There's fast sailing, slow sailing, competitive racing type sailing, social events. Some members sail on ice, some of them fly through the sky and on sailboards. It's quite a variety. We do a lot of socializing. The joke is that sailors are drinkers with a sailing problem, and when we celebrate things, we tend to have a really good time. We get together and at our pavilion or other places and enjoy each other's company, and we do a lot of educating of young and old. I'll touch base on that in just a minute. And we race in regional and local regattas, some of us, and some just cruise, and some come out and use the small boats. As Mary said, the club has small boats for use for those who don't own the boat of their own. It only costs $90 a year to join the CLSA, so a couple rounds of golf and you got a whole year's membership. You can park a boat for a few $100s more. You can park a boat out there on our property for the whole year. And then, as we said, you can use the club sailboat. So it's quite a wonderful opportunity for those who either want to learn how to sail or are sailors. Sailing means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. This is the boat that was sitting behind me in the image that I purchased just before the COVID lockdown and the shutting down of the lake. So it's been sitting here on a slip for quite a while. These are the typical marina slips. This is mostly a sailing dock, and some of the other docks have power boats and houseboats and other types of vessels. These are what we call cabin boats, but they're in the 20 to 30 foot range, most of them in the mid 20s. There are accommodations on here like a porta potty and a small place to sleep if you wanted to stay over on the boat. It's cramped quarters, but it's the whole idea there is that it's a boat that's large enough that you could actually cook a meal or live aboard. Most people don't do that at Clinton Lake, but there's quite a bit of cruising on these types of boats. Racing is an image of a regatta in process, and it's a spirited sport. It's a lot of fun for those who like to compete with each other. It keeps you sharp and quite enjoyable. There's small boat racing or small boat sailing. This is a laser, which is the most popular small boat of all time, with one of our better sailors on it. He's really an ace. This takes a lot of cleverness to be able to do this well and maneuver around on a little boat this size. A big guy like me has a little bit of trouble maneuvering agilely. These smaller guys do it better than I do. This is an example of the cockpit of a cabin boat, and these folks are socializing. So they bring their snacks and their beverages, and they're partying with another boat or sitting and socializing with another boat. Do quite a bit of that. Here's activity on the dock at one of our events. Again, there's a big push for a social aspect to CLSA. I'd say half of our members are members because they have a social benefit. And then in the adrenaline junkies do this stuff. This is a windsurfer, which is relatively slow compared to some of the others. You can, some of the windsurfing records are up in the 30+ mile an hour range in a breeze. These are kite surfers, and they are on a little board with a kite. And some of the kiting records are up in the 50, 60 mile an hour range. And now there are even kite boards that will get up on a tiny little fin and be clear of the water completely. That'll go even faster. We don't have very many pictures of them because they're too fast to photograph. A little bit on the social aspects of CLSA. Like I said, we get together frequently for activities in the pavilion, either around sailing or any other excuse. This is at a regatta. Somebody is telling the folks what will happen next at this regatta. There's a lot of fooling around. So this was I think the event was called Lassies on the Lake, and the men had to sponsor and support the women coming out and racing at the lake, and it was a great deal of fun. We have some very competitive female racers in our club as well. And any excuse to socialize. This is Wednesday night sailing. People just come out. So this is Jody Heckel, reporter for the News Gazette, on my boat with me on a Wednesday night. We're just out doing the Wednesday night thing. We do a little impromptu racing around and have a good time. And so, minus the social aspect, we'll be doing that this year. And then again, the fooling around aspect. This is an event we do every year, the Captain Morgan, where there's considerable revelry and a little bit of rum consumed in a 2-day event with large boat racing and this kind of activity. And then obviously we all like to take time to relax. There's nothing better than spending time at the lake at sunset. And this picture happens to pick up a kayak and a sailboat at the same time the sun is going down, which is like, oh wow, it's fantastic. There's no place like the lake. We have 2 pairs of nesting bald eagles out at Clinton Lake, and so we frequently see the eagles fishing in the lake. We see blue heron. There are huge herds of deer in the woods, and it's really natural. You can see from this picture that Clinton Lake doesn't have any houses around it. It's all completely natural because it's owned by a complex system of ownership between the power company and the DeWitt County and the Department of Natural Resources for the state of Illinois, which kind of all govern different parts of Clinton Lake. But the long and short of it is there aren't any homes built around it, which means there's a lot of opportunity for nature and enjoying the outdoors. Education is a huge part of what we do. We do a lot of classes, so we run classes through Parkland, and we do a summer class with kids. This is one of our instructors giving kids kind of the basics on, so this is what a sailboat is and this is how it works. Kids are amazing. They start out knowing nothing, and they very quickly pick up both the courage and the knowledge to be able to go out and sail. And it's a remarkable thing to watch, just like when they pick up bicycle riding or anything else. They're whizzes at it because they don't know that they could even fail. They just go out there and do it. This is one of our kid-based educational programs. We have a small fleet of these little boats called Opties, and it's essentially a cardboard box. It's designed after a refrigerator box. I think it's about 6 feet long. It wouldn't hold anything bigger than a 12-year-old kid. I've tried to get in one and sail it, and it's almost impossible for an adult. And they're perfect for kids. So you get them out, teach them the basics, get them out in the water, and the magic starts to occur from there. It's just a hoot to watch it. these are lasers in the background. So this was a mixed event with little kids and opties and lasers at the same time. A lot of on the water instruction. The best way to get over fears in sailing or water sports is just get wet. And when we take the kids out and we capsize boats and we teach them how to right the boat, these are all filled with flotation so they don't go anywhere. The kids are and the adults are all wear life jackets, so it's a safe and very educational process. And they're virtually fearless to start with. So once they get over the oh my gosh, it might tip over, they're on their way. Here's a group of kids doing a little sort of a race where they're just sailing around. And again, these kids have only had a little bit of instruction and a little time in the boat, and they're already good sailors. So it's a blast to watch them come along. And they end up being owners of smaller boats like lasers, and then maybe even club members in the future. So we're growing the club, one kid at a time. This is an adult child event where it was part of an open house where we went out and just gave kids a sailing experience. Fantastic opportunity to get kids who potentially haven't been on the water at all an opportunity to not only get out on the water, but he's got his hand on the tiller and he's being instructed by someone who happens to be a teacher on the fine art of sailing. So we hope to hook them when they're young like this. This is one of our classes where we start out. This is an adult class, and we start out by telling people, what this is a boat, and this is how you rig it. So you go through the whole process of putting together the small boat that you're going to sail. It's part of the education, and they very fairly quickly, not quite as quick as the kids, pick up the art of putting together and sailing a sailboat. We do a lot of instruction around our racing programs. This is actually a semi-pro racing sailor here giving instruction around a boat to owners of this same boat, the same class of boat. And so all these people standing around are Thistle owners. And this individual is very knowledgeable and giving some expert advice on this is how you tune this boat, this is how you sail this boat. And eventually they'll go out on the water and sail against each other, potentially with the coach in the boat to learn more about sailing. Just a little bit on racing. Once you get to, it's interesting how this works, but once you get to enjoy sailing, one step for a lot of people is you start to feel a little competitive. It's like golf or something, you learn how to swing a golf club and pretty soon you're out there golfing against people or bike riding or whatever, where hey, I think I've got an edge here. And racing's the same way. This vessel is the Clinton Lake Sailing Association's committee boat, and it's full of gear. So this little place in the center holds a lot of racing flags and horns and timers and the stuff that they use to start races. And so this pontoon boat is sort of the beginning of a race. It's one end of a starting line. These boats have just started across a starting line. So this horn was sounded on the committee boat, and the racers are off. So they cross the line here to begin a race. This happens to be a downwind race. So this boat has a spinnaker up. Actually, this is my boat, so I must have been courageous enough to try to as they say, fly the chute but I'm not at the starting line, so I can't explain the anomaly there. It's just something I'll have to wonder about. But we do this on weekends, sometimes on Wednesday nights, like I said, sort of on an impromptu pickup level, and sometimes on a little more organized level with this committee boat in place. There's all kinds of boats in this racing program. So this is a boat called the Flying Scot. It's the biggest fleet we have at Clinton Lake. I own one, and several dozen others in our club have a Flying Scot that they keep out at the lake. It's easy to launch. You keep it more or less ready to sail with even the mainsail on the boat, so you can get it in the water in 10 minutes and be out there. Like on a Wednesday night, that's just perfect because we can get out and sail the sun down and enjoy some chips and a beer, and then come home. It's a fantastic way to spend a weeknight. This is an organized formal race during the weekend. They're sailing downwind, which means they have spinnakers up. These large sails out in the front of the boat are called spinnakers, and they pulls the boat down downwind, and quite fast. It's thrilling when you get to that part of a sailboat race. Close quarter racing. This is rounding a mark. Is somewhere in all of this, there's one of those orange balls that's the mark that you round in a sailboat race. And these are some of our better sailors. This is Deb Aronson and Ben Williams, who have won many regattas in the Midwest region, and a boat called the Kitchen Sink, owned by people called the Kitchens, obviously. And it's Ohio State red. He actually ordered that color to have the boat painted when he ordered the boat. So they're sort of Ohio State fanatics. We ignore that part of it and just compete out on the water, boat against boat. But as you can see, these boats are almost close enough to touch, which is a foul if they do touch. So it's fierce competition, and it's a lot of fun. After the regatta, we have some somewhat crude facilities out here. Believe it or not, this is our shower. It's moderately private, and it has moderately warm water in it. And after you've been sailing all day and stink, then it's wonderful to scrub up. And then, of course, what follows the cleanup part of a regatta is socializing. And so we spend quite a bit of time around the fire pit, as we like to call it, which is a giant grill out in front of the pavilion. This is a regatta we hold every year, and we've had as many as 30 boats come from other places, other parts of the Midwest, in about 4 different states. So it's a pretty good draw. It's an event the Hartman started years ago. It died off, and then it was rekindled a few years back. It's called the Glow in honor of the Clinton Lake Power Station, which is nuclear powered. It doesn't actually glow, but the regatta is still named the Glow. And these people will either camp out overnight or find a local hotel. We've got a lot of campers, so we camp right here on the grounds. You can see, I think, in the background, there's some tents set up in the woods behind the pavilion. I like this shot because this is your plight if you're not a sailor. Is you're sitting there wishing you were sailing. This little dog is an avid sailor as well. He has his own life jacket, and he sails on his owner's bigger boat. And this is a bevy of boats rafting up, essentially, which is tying up together and socializing out on the water. There's a big raft up every weekend of the power boats down in the cove, down in the corner of the lake. We do it at a smaller scale, a little less rowdy, but social nonetheless. Let me share some additional information, and then I'll field some questions. We have hopefully you see a web page come up there. And this is the Clinton Lake Sailing Association website. It's at clsasailing.org, and it has a lot of useful information on it, so you can go and look at it. There's among other things, there are calendars, kind of what's coming up. Unfortunately, some of these say canceled now because we're obviously not either eating at boondocks or cruising there together as a group. So people are doing individual boating, but we don't do group activities right now because of COVID. We have a board, so we'll have a board meeting next week. And then we have casual racing on Wednesday nights. We'll have to figure out how some of these regattas will be rescheduled, because this was the big one with the rum-soaked pirates in it that we had to cancel or postpone. If the lake has been opened back up, so the governor's order allowed us to be on Clinton Lake, and we can sail with 2 people on a boat right now. And so many of us are just finding excuses to get out there to the lake, hoping the weather warms up a bit for boating. And they had a warm weekend right after the governor opened up the lake, and the number of power boats on the lake was phenomenal. And unfortunately, there was also a lot of what the New Jersey governor was calling knucklehead behavior, which is ignoring all the rules and just doing whatever they wanted. So we may end up in a lockdown later in the season if all the fishermen make each other sick because they can't wear masks or follow the number of people on the boat rules. So we'll see how that plays out. And then, like I said, there's a schedule. There's all kinds of information available about what we're doing coming up or our social events. that are coming up. So I'll just tell you about the website. You can explore it. I'll also say that anybody that wants to go sailing can get in touch with me. Currently, I'm the Commodore, but the information on the website tells you how to get in touch if you can't get in touch with me. And I'll take you sailing on my big boat. We can go out. You can come out on Wednesday night. You can try it. You don't have to be a club member to go out to the lake and sail. So it's a fantastic way to spend some time and get to know or get to see if you are interested in being a sailor. And if you are, then we would welcome you to be a part of Clinton Lake Sailing Association. I think it's one of the best deals. Once we tell people kind of where Clinton Lake is, this is one of the best deals out there as far as being able to get a social experience and learn a new skill at the same time. So with that, I'll open it up to questions if anyone has a question for me.
Craig,
Yeah.
how safe is the water there from contamination on the from the power plant?
The only reason I'm hesitating is I'm trying to figure out how to answer. That's a fairly common question. It's a little bit like the question about airliners. After an airline accident, how safe is an airliner? It's about as safe as it can get. The attention paid to the water quality at Clinton Lake is vastly higher than it is at any of our surrounding lakes. Lake Decatur smells worse and is more muck in it than this lake by far. And so there's a constant vigilance about the operation of the power plant. They're not allowed to emit radioactive materials into the air or the water, and they're highly regulated. So I've been out here for several decades now sailing. The water is clean for a Midwest lake. It still looks muddy because it's a muddy bottom lake, obviously. But the water quality is high. There are 5 or 6 species of fish in the lake. We swim in it when it's not too warm. At the end of the summer, it gets like a spa, so it's not refreshing. But it's in my opinion, and from all that I know and have heard, it's very clean. That people have a perception that the the power plant is an emitter of nuclear radiation, and that's not an accurate perception. I'm an environmentalist myself, but I don't have a fear of, I guess, short of meltdown. It's possible a Chernobyl or some event can happen, but Chernobyl would take out Champaign just as well as it would the people around the lake. So I'd just soon be on the lake at that point. And nuclear power is highly regulated in the United States, so I think it's safe.
Thank you.
Craig,
Craig, you mentioned that you mentioned the classes at Parkland, but I think Heartland has a more extensive lineup of classes, and some people might not be aware that some of them are held as close as Muhammad. So maybe you might want to talk a little bit about that.
I will. Thank you, Mary. We have classes that are co-sponsored or supported by both Parkland College and Heartland College, and so people can sign up for those just like they're taking any other course, and they come out in the instruction pictures that I showed of people, and I can go to it, but I won't bother at the moment. Of people learning how to sail, learning how to put the boats together is all part of that class. There's an intro session for adults. Most of that is adult learning. And so you can sign up for those. They're in the course catalogs now. We've talked to those colleges about what we're going to do this summer. And so right now we're sort of suspending education because of the COVID. But normally we would be running those 2 courses several days out on the water, not days, but hours at a time out on the water, and several in-class sessions to learn the basics of sailing. And then there's a summer program with the little kids. So it's a parent-child program where the parent gets to come along and either help or learn to sail themselves while the kid gets in the little opties and goes out and learns how to sail. So thank you, Mary. Those courses can be found at either Heartland or Parkland. And again, if you don't find what you're looking for, get in touch with us at CLSA, and we'll make sure you you can take a class if you'd like. It's a really good way to get introduced to sailing without the intimidation factor. You know, many people go out, they buy or borrow a boat, they blow it over in the wind and capsize it. That's their last sailing experience because no one ever really taught them how to do it well. And they didn't have the training to get hooked on it as an enjoyable sport. I bought more than one boat from somebody that had a singular negative sailing experience because they just didn't approach it with you wouldn't approach any other sport that way. So why would sailing be any easier than racing a bicycle or a car or something?
Craig, this speaks a little bit to the ignorance of sailing, but we've had no shortage of wind this year. Is it ever too windy, and is there ever a time when all the sailboats get parked at one end of the lake?
Yeah, the boon and the bane kind of thing. You know, the bane of sailors is there frequently is either too little or too much wind. So that perfect 10-mile-an-hour wind that we're always dreaming about happens, you know, a small percentage of the time, and then the rest of the time it's either, you know, blowing 2 miles an hour, and when you're sitting out there, and frankly, it's like going fishing and not catching fish. If you're out sailing and there's no wind, it's pretty dull. So we usually swim off the boat for a while and then, you know, go for a cold one and call it a day if there's no wind. If it's blowing above 15, some of the less experienced sailors just stay off the water or out of the boat, or they sail with somebody with experience. Those of us who've been doing this for a long time really enjoy that kind of challenge. And so when the breeze gets up, you get out there and sail. The Flying Scots that I showed you the pictures of will capsize, so you have to be an alert sailor, but you can sail it safely and up to 20 miles an hour. And above that, most of the wise sailors are off the lake because it becomes unsafe. A big boat a keelboat will sail in those bigger breezes, and so you reef the sail by putting a couple reefs in the mainsail, which is just taking sail area down, and then they become manageable even in a breeze. So a bigger boat you can sail in 25 with gusts to 30 kind of adventure, and it is an adventure. My single sail this year was with a friend of mine on his boat, and we actually broke his boom in that kind of wind. So we were having a really good time until we broke the boat. So it just depends on what end of the spectrum you're on, but safety is always our top concern. So that's when people don life jackets and the experienced sailors go out and the others watch from the shore and shoot video. Good question.
Craig, if I could ask you to stop your screen sharing so we can all see each other again.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's all right, thanks.
That's okay, we've seen each other before.
Yeah. Well, you know, Rotaries, you guys are doing Zoom well. Champaign Rotary, we're doing Zoom pretty well. I kind of tired of Zoom now because I teach a class at the university via Zoom, and after a while, you're zoomed out. I think after this is all over, Zoom is going to become a curse word, and they probably need to find a new product to sell because, you know, I can't imagine Zooming with your friends and family after we've been doing it for the better part of a year, maybe.
All right.
Check the chat too. I didn't look. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is there anything else? Any other questions? Other questions? All right. Before I will have Kerry close us with one of his stories. Kerry, you still here? There you are. Yeah. I would remind you, please respond to Oktay's request for nominations. Lou will be sending out dues notices soon. We'll only be asking for dues, not the meal plan, since we have no idea. You know, hopefully you're enjoying your own bacon, but you know, right now there's no bacon to be had. And please note, Phyllis, make sure she sends out volunteer opportunities as we can. And Todd, I'm sure that you will send out volunteer opportunities as they become available. Is there anything else for the good of the cause?
Well, we need to thank Craig.
Oh, Craig, thank you, Craig. And if this was normal times, we'd have some books for you to sign that would go to Head Start or something. But we'll send some books when things clear up.
Okay, fantastic. Come sail with us. Give me a call anytime you want to get out. It's one of the few recreations you can undertake right now, and it's safe because you know you're out in the wide open outdoors. So come sail.
Sounds great right now.
Thanks.
Greg, maybe you mentioned this and I missed it. What about for someone who hasn't done any sailing? Is there a training that needs to be done, or how does it work?
Well, anyone could come out and sail with a member anytime. So if someone contacted me and said, I've never been sailing before, can we go out? I'd make sure that the conditions were, you know, pleasant and not challenging, and say, yeah, let's sail. And it's fun and it's safe on the medium and bigger boats, not the little tiny laser. You know, you don't
Yeah.
put somebody with no experience on a small boat and push them off. Many of us learned that way by somebody pushing us out in the lake, but it's kind of brutal. But the friendly sail is a great way to get introduced. And then the bigger boat, like the one I showed you that we have at the docks at the lake, it's quite a relaxing and enjoyable time. And you don't have to do any more work than you want to. You know, you can pull on lines and follow some kind orders to help sail the boat, or you can just sit and enjoy it. So
Okay.
yeah, it's at all different levels. And then if you're really interested, the class is the best way, because you kind of the basics. You know, it's like it's like golf, learning golf or something. Here's how you swing a golf club. You know,
Right.
This is how you sail a boat.